As a novice DIYer, it doesn't take watching too many videos before you feel like you really need an impact driver. So today I'm going to explain to you why they're different from a normal drill, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, and when I would suggest you start thinking about investing in one. Over the last few years, impact drivers have become more available, cheaper, and a lot more commonplace in people's tool collections. And this type, which is what I'd call a DIY woodwork type impact driver, compared to the bigger, bulkier automotive version, is small, it's short, it sits in the hand nicely, and just is a pleasure to use. And even if we compare it to a small combi drill, we can see it's a lot shorter, but the difference is not in the motor. These motors are exactly the same. The difference is from this point onwards. On the combi drill, we've got a clutch and a standard chuck, and on the impact driver, we've got this impact mechanism and a quick release shank. So what's the difference between these two, and how does this actually work? A standard combi drill uses nothing more than gearing between the motor and the chuck to hopefully have enough torque to screw in a fixing. Whereas an impact driver also has a mechanism in the front housing that over a certain force spins and essentially hits the chuck, an impact, hence the name, giving it additional rotational force or torque. This hitting action happening a number of times a second is what you can hear. And it's not in and out like a hammer action, but it's rotational. This is what gives impact drivers extra torque over and above standard drills, similar to hitting a spanner around a shaft to persuade it to keep turning. And this impact mechanism also works in both directions, helping them to extract screws as well as put them in. So impact drivers, because of this mechanism at the front, are more powerful and deliver more torque when you're trying to screw something in. But there's also some drawbacks when you're comparing it to a standard drill. A great underused feature of the average combi drill is the depth adjustment set by using the clutch. So a lower setting will disengage the rotation at a very light torque, hence not screwing this in far enough. And a heavy setting may force in a screw too far, but once you've got the setting right for the job, which is very easy and quick to do, you can keep putting in fixings to the right depth every time without even having to think about it. Which is completely different to an impact driver that generally won't stop for anybody until you take your finger off the trigger. That and the fact that it rotates quite fast can make it easy to over tighten fixings or to drive them too deep. So what you wouldn't have seen in the last few clips is that I've been wearing ear protection throughout all of this, because impact drivers are very, very noisy. So if you use one of these at 9 AM on a Sunday in your back garden to fix your shed, everyone within about 100 metres is going to know exactly what you're doing. That knocking action that makes them so successful and so powerful comes at a cost, and that is noise. Having said that, these are great pieces of kit. So when would I suggest someone invests in buying an impact driver? Well, for two reasons. Firstly, if you can't undo a screw and you're just getting to a point where you're going to turn over the top, an impact driver may well free that screw. Or if you carry out a project where you need to drill and fix continuously back and forth, a bit like I was doing when I built my bench recently in the corner of my workshop. Rather than changing bits on your drill and swapping backwards and forwards all the time, it's really handy to have both a drill and an impact driver, one for drilling and one for fixing. And this can really help speed up the process. So I hope that gives you an insight into these things and when you could benefit from having one. Remember to go and check out our Patreon page. You can support us over there, and I will see you next time.